I recognize myself for 5 minutes to ask a few questions. I really appreciate the conversation. I think all the members did. Thank you very much. One of the other committees I sit on is the Budget Committee, and so my ears really perked up when I heard Mr. Shelton talk about the misdirected investment. I think you said a 0.2% increase in investment in technology. Did I get that right?
Actually, what I said is, relative to other sectors, we underinvest in R&D. We spend about 0.2% on R&D and education technology. That's about 1/10 of what any mature industry spend or any high-growth industry.
So you were talking industry-wide. You didn't mean the Department of Education budget or
Absolutely
anything like that. Okay. All right. Moving right along then. This one. And do the other three of you have a comment on that about R&D in the sector? Agree, disagree?
Just, I think R&D is coming from all different angles. That again, you have new entrepreneurs coming in, trying out new models as nonprofits, as for-profit providers, and I think it's creating an ecosystem of R&D. The federal role definitely has a role with IES and others, and through some of their experimental grants. But it's also creating the space in the room for schools and charter schools to try something, fail, and if it fails, it's okay. Shut it down. And scale the high-performing
Do you see a future where there'd be something like what we call 3 Ps, public-private partnerships, somewhat what we're doing now more and more with roads? Do you see that model working here? So,
absolutely. I think it's critical. It's the way we've tackled social challenges from healthcare to clean tech energy. We need to do that more in education as well.
So another thing that I was wondering about, I've wondered about it before, but I'm reminded as I hear Ms. Sagis's testimony and yours, Mr. Bailey, this idea, what I call critical thinking, and you may have a professional term for it, but as I grew up, the idea that I was taught, especially in the later years, to problem solve, to look at something, the idea of being taught to think versus just being sent and receiving content. So I clearly see, whether it's Mr. Khan's videos that I've seen or other situations, which they're excellent, by the way, that's great at for review, for getting content, for those kind of things. How do you teach critical thinking in a virtual world? Ms. Sagas?
That is really a great question. And so the way our courses are set up, they're very project-based. So students go in and they do sort of authentic projects in a lot of different areas. And they work very closely. We have what we call a high-tech, high-touch environment where the teachers and the students work very closely together. And our teachers actually, on a monthly basis, have to do what is called a discussion-based assessment with our students. And they get into a very deep conversation about the content, deeper than what you can actually, assess through a typical online assessment. So we have a variety of different ways that we really try to dig in and get to that level with the students. And with the Common Core coming on board, that's exactly the shift you're going to see all across the country with the way content is going to be, redelivered to students.
Great. Common Core, perhaps another hearing. Mr. Bailey, any add-on to that? Quickly.
Just one, that I think you're seeing this new model coming out that's not pure blended learning, but it's called the flipped classroom. It's rethinking the use of time. So students, instead of doing homework at night or watching the videos and the lectures at night, and then they're coming into the classroom, and that's where you get some of the critical thinking, because now instead of the teacher having to lecture, they're able to jump right into classroom discussion, small group discussion, and sort of test out the reasoning and the thinking around that.
And not to leave Mr. Smith out real quick, because I got some other stuff. Anything to add? Okay. So completely online wouldn't be as good as blended, though, for critical thinking. Or
well,
do you disagree?
I think that there are, I don't, let me just frame up the question maybe a little bit differently. I think there are times when online is absolutely the best way for critical thinking, and then I think there are times when perhaps a blended model, and I think it depends on the student as well. So that's kind of the whole joy around the whole personalized learning for students, because now with technology we can really dig in and discover how each child learns best and then provide them with the tools that they need.
And what's the makeup of your virtual school in terms of low-income students? Did you say? I forgot.
In our part-time schools, our low-income students run right about 40%, and in our full-time school, we're about 48%.
Thank you. And then the time I have remaining, I'll try to be quick. Mr. Shelton, DC Opportunity Scholarship Program. I'm sure you knew we were going to be interested in that. The principal investigator who wanted to do the review said you need 700 more students. Don't have that. We have about 300 now. What's the department doing to increase that number so we can get a grade here?
Sure. So we work really hard with the Children's Youth Investment Trust, which is the grantee, to put together a new recruitment and outreach strategy so that they could actually recruit the number of students that are required, and also to streamline the processes around figuring out whether students are actually eligible for the program, because they actually have a significant amount of attrition. They had some staffing changes, so they have, I think, a couple of bumps in the road on the recruitment this year, but their numbers are up over last year, and we'll see what happens.
Any internal deadline set for yourselves?
We extended the deadline for the trust to be able to both calibrate their new applicants as well as get the renewals in place in order to get the numbers up.
Thank you. My time has expired.